Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam Carswell. Today we are joined by Milan Seman. Milan is the representative of the Netherlands for Liberland. Milan, thank you for joining us today. And do you have any opening remarks for our listeners?
Hi, Adam. Thanks for inviting me, of course. Greetings to everyone listening. As Adam said, I'm a representative in the Netherlands, but recently I've been entrusted with the responsibility coordinating the efforts on the Liberland's governance model. We are working on some sort of decision-making platform, and also Liberland's ICO and the creation of Liberland's currency, the merit.
Very cool. I have to say, first of all, thank you for your service, because I know that's definitely a time commitment and very important to the foundation of our nation. So thank you for doing that beyond your normal call of duty at the Netherlands.
It's my pleasure, absolute pleasure. And, I'm learning a lot as I work with Liberland. So it's really rewarding, not just meeting people on the way, but also encountering problems you probably normally would expect in any startup. And Liberland is a sort of startup country, so it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never even really thought about it that way, but it's a very accurate way to describe the country, especially with the amount of technology involved in the foundation.
Yeah, I was giving a lecture last year in Liberland's conference, and actually the most appropriate description of Liberland that I could think of was that Liberland is really a disruptive model of governance. We are libertarians. We are building a libertarian country, so we do believe in non-aggression principle. So we want to not fight other governments, but we want to offer an alternative, and that's Liberland, the free state of Liberland.
Absolutely. So how did you begin your journey as a Liberlandian, Milan?
I only became aware of Liberland when it was in its second year of existence. That was about 2016. I signed up on the webpage liberland.org, which I, by the way, encourage everyone to do. Mm-hmm. And at some point, Vít Jedlička, the president of Liberland, traveled to Rotterdam, and he was giving a lecture. So I met him there personally, and a few weeks later, he invited me to work with him and the cabinet on building Liberland. So for me, that was actually absolutely amazing, because, all my life I actually believed in one sort of guiding principle of morality, and that's that freedom of one ends where freedom of another starts. And then I've heard the motto of Liberland, which is, and I'm sure you've discussed this countlessly, but it's the live and let live. And that's actually saying the same thing in different words. So that instantly clicked with me, and I was hooked, interested in working on this project. I became a citizen of Liberland a year later in 2017, got a passport, did the oath. And I'm happy to work for and with Liberland ever since.
That's so cool. Did you and the president click at all, since you're both from the Czech Republic?
Vít, the president, is an interesting personality. I really like him as a person. That's not to say he's always easy to work with, but that's a good thing. He's a visionary. He needs practical, technical people around him, and I actually more fall into that category. I'm not an extrovert, I'm not an outspoken person, but I prefer to work behind the scenes. So actually, I would say our personalities are sort of complementary.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Happy to work with him. Yeah,
I feel
and other people, of course.
Right. Well, I have to say, first of all, personally, I can relate. Sometimes I find myself becoming very visionary, and then I need someone to kind of put me in check and be like, wait, Adam, do you realize that you need a roadmap to get to that goal or something like that? Oh, no. Can you help me? But the other thing that you just mentioned, I have to say thank you for overcoming your introverted ways, because this is pretty extroverted of you to be joining me on the show.
It actually is, and I think it's the fact that I do give lectures a lot for my work, but it's something temporary. I mean, people leave maybe with a certain impression of me, but to do this and to place it permanently on the internet, that's sort of scary but exciting. So I do hope that I will leave an interesting message and that people will enjoy listening to it.
Definitely. That's almost guaranteed. So no worries about that on your end. I am curious, though, talking about you being from the Czech Republic, and we kind of mentioned this before the call, but you have kind of lived and experienced a lot of different cultures around the world. Can you tell us about your background?
Sure, absolutely. I left the Czech Republic when I was 15, which is actually... it was interesting time, because it was shortly after the socialist or communist regime in the Czech Republic finished, which gave me certain distaste for collectivism. I totally agree with, I think it was Ayn Rand who said that fascism, Nazism, communism, and socialism are only variations of the same theme, and that's collectivism. I do dislike that, and I pride myself on individualism, and I like to be an individual. So I left the Czech Republic. I spent a year in Michigan in the US in high school. I then left for the Far East. I lived about 15 years in Japan, Korea, and China. I got my degree in Japan and in chemical engineering. So I'm a chemical engineer and designer by profession.
Okay. Yeah, you're definitely too smart to be on the show already.
Well, let me tell you, a lot of that is walking around construction site and sort of hitting things with a hammer. It's a great job in the sense that I could travel the world. I love working with people from different cultures. Mm-hmm. Most of my life I spent a time with people from 3 or 5 countries sharing the same office, and I really like that. And that's something what is certainly true about Liberland. You are in San Francisco now. I'm in The Hague in the Netherlands, and when we do our Tuesday phone calls with Liberland, there is probably at least 8 to 10 nationalities on the phone call. So that's fascinating, and I like that. So why I little bit sidetracked now, but
that's great. Keep going.
As a chemical engineer, it was quite an interesting job, and I'm a technical person, so it was very satisfying. But at a certain time, I thought I should diversify. So I actually moved to international relations and safety and security. That's where I am now, and working with Liberland.
Yeah. And so how long did you say you've been in The Hague, in the Netherlands?
I've been in The Hague for 7 years. It's a great city. I always like to say that if I could take The Hague and place it somewhere in the Alps, that would be my ideal place to live, because I do like mountains, and I like sports. I do a lot of skiing and mountain biking. So I do miss that. But at the same time, I appreciate living in a place that's safe and very progressive when it comes to technologies. And as you know, Liberland came into life with sort of the rise of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And the Netherlands is actually a great place to network with people in blockchain.
I agree. That's one thing that I have noticed. Well, so just on the last episode, I interviewed Heaven Bereket, who was saying how in Sweden, one of her challenges is kind of the not wanting of the country to adopt blockchain and cryptocurrency. And from what I've seen online, and people that I follow in the Netherlands, you're validating it right now, it actually is a very open-minded place to be, where you can really be creative and talk about the things that you really want to talk about and not worry about someone kind of judging you or telling you to be quiet.
Mm-hmm. It's true, and it's interesting, but at the same time, what Heaven said, and I completely agree with that as well, is that it's sometimes the underdeveloped and poor countries that are actually more ready to accept this technology. And I think when you talked with Gautier, he mentioned Liberland's trip to Somaliland. That's an unrecognized country, but very eager to embrace technology simply because there is no foundation for traditional banking. They have a lot of people who are unbanked. So for them they're very open to take the advantage of what blockchain technology offers. Now, it's similar to how you travel to some, and I only say that hesitation, underdeveloped countries, and you notice that they have a lot better internet than, let's say, what we have in Europe. And that's simply because they built internet lines and never had phone lines. So they sort of did the quantum leap to the better, more advanced technology. And I think for Africa and a lot of the third world, blockchain technologies are great opportunity to make that quantum leap and come on par with the developed world.
Right. And I'm not sure if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Doug Casey at all?
No, I'm not.
So he's pretty prominent, I would say, in the libertarian space. I've gotten to meet him a couple times and listened to him on a few interviews. And I think Doug's probably in his 60s, maybe even 70s now. But he's like, if I was 30 years old again, I'd be on hopping on a plane, one-way ticket to an African nation. And the one that he specified was Namibia. But I finally got to talk to him and ask him why. And he's saying exactly what we're talking about now. There's so much opportunity for growth, and also people with knowledge, for example, in blockchain, just to leverage that knowledge and leverage what they know to benefit the country. There's just so much potential in these, well, basically around the world, but especially in the developing nations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I do hope that they'll take that chance and work with it, because that would be very interesting. And, like they don't have to, certainly there is level of corruption, but also there is perhaps less resistance in terms of bureaucracy, because the Western world had decades or centuries of developing very complex bureaucracy, and a lot of it is actually not necessary or is in contradiction to what the blockchain is trying to do, to remove the middleman.
So can you tell us, Milan, about a unique experience that you've had personally with Liberland where wow, if I wasn't with Liberland, then this probably would have never happened in my life?
Every single meeting of Liberland is extremely unique. You never know who you're going to meet. And last time I was on the boat trip to visit Liberland. Of course, we were escorted by the Croatian police because they're, for some mysterious reasons, trying to prevent us from entering Liberland. But, I was in a discussion with several people and I had no idea who they are. Like there was a person who sort of looked like a yoga teacher or a hippie. And only later I discovered he had a private jet waiting for him to take him to a conference in Dubai. And also the way Liberland events are organized or not organized, I should say. It's a chaos. And I say it, I'm excited because they are so unpredictable. Mm-hmm. 1 hour, you don't know what's going to happen the next. I think to some extent, chaos is actually good. Maybe we are too used to order, and we are forgetting that good things can come out of chaos. Like a disruption that Liberland can actually benefit from a certain degree of disrespect for order.
Right. Wow.
So every single event with Liberland is a unique experience.
That's beautiful. I love that, because I would say you need some level of order and structure, but from what I can see on what you're saying is like the level and order of structure is, okay, we're going to have a meeting. From there on, having the freedom to paint the picture of what's going to be discussed or addressed as you go along, I just think that's very cool, to say the least.
Absolutely, yeah. We should ride the wave of disruption, because Liberland connects with a lot of people who disagree with the stagnant methods of established life. We want to challenge people's opinion. It's about freedom, about privacy, decentralization. maybe disturbing ideas for a lot of people, but it's nice to have an option to choose. And as I said before, Liberland is this disruptive model, an alternative model of statehood.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it reminds me of, I'm sure you're probably familiar with Jeff Berwick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah, he was in one of, several of Liberland's events. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so he recently had someone on his podcast who was talking about the topic of seasteading. And I'm sure if you're familiar with seasteading, it's something that I'm completely new to. So I wouldn't even be the right one to give you the example. What do you know about it?
I met Natalia from Seasteading in Liberland. She was actually on one of the boats heading to Liberland, and I thought that was actually a nice situation to see seasteading people river studying the Danube on the way to Liberland. It's really interesting. It's another disruptive model, different from Liberland, but different from the normal statehood. I mean, the idea is there is simply not many pieces of land available for making a new country. Well, let's build a new country in international waters. And,
right.
In the future, there will probably be satellite cities around the Earth or on Mars. Who knows? That can happen too. And maybe sooner than we think.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, hey, having something like seasteading where there's no structure to it and you can kind of paint your own picture as you go, that's what we were put on this earth to do, is to have the freedom and the liberty to do things like that. And so it's just so cool. I had to mention that.
It's about doing things ourselves. And I think we live in exciting times because so many opportunities are arising. It's scary because there is a lot of responsibility and personal risk. And I appreciate that it's not the choice of life for everyone. I think a lot of people are happy with things as they are, but there is a lot of people like myself who just like a freedom to make the decision. I mean, I traveled to a running race in Chihuahua in Mexico a few years ago. This race is in an area that, there is a lot of narcos in that area. It's also dangerous because of the heat and just simply the geography of the region. In most races, you have to sign disclaimer. But in this race, the disclaimer was just one sentence. And it was, if I get lost, hurt, or die, it is my own damn fault. And I thought that was brilliant and completely sufficient. And I thought, this is very much what I believe we should also sign off in life. People should not believe that someone will always somehow take care. No, we have to take care ourselves.
Right. Yep. Responsibility down to the very, very last detail.
Yeah, and that's what Liberland is about. And I think that's Spider-Man, right? That with power comes responsibility. Yes. So let's say with freedom comes responsibility.
That's true. Yeah, good reference on Spider-Man. I wouldn't have caught that one. What advice do you have for anyone listening that, again, I know you mentioned it earlier, but for anyone who wants to get involved with Liberland or to become a citizen, what advice do you have for them?
So we have Liberland Jobs website where people can now already look for jobs connected with Liberland. In the future, we want to use it more. So like to post tasks, and people will be able to bid for those tasks as a contract and earn Liberland merits in return. Of course, you can get on social media, help us to spread the message, repost, discuss with people. I think these are, and of course you can come to any of our events. Most of them are public, and it's always interesting to see new people.
Right. And it sounds like, based on what we were talking about earlier, most fun and exciting part about the meetings is, hey, it's a meeting. Come talk. Let's see where this thing goes, and kind of, you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Please do that.
Where do you see the country in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's really interesting question. And literally every time I meet someone from Liberland, we touch on that subject. I don't know if 5 years is enough to become a recognized country, but I can tell you one thing, the recognition is not necessary for Liberland to become a country. All we really need is to be tolerated by the neighbors, by Serbia and Croatia, and we are working on that. We don't want that for free. We want to bring development and investment in the area. We are already doing that now, especially in Serbia. We've actually built really good relationship with the local community. We want to extend that. We want the locals to want to have Liberland as their neighbor. And I think in 5 years, we may have a permanent settlement in place. I do believe that's achievable. Liberland is a small country, like it could be what Monaco is to France. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we are building on a sort of intelligence superiority. We want to have technological superiority and bring that into the area. It's a very small country. It's 7 kilometers square. But, I think it was Dalai Lama who said that if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sharing a room with a mosquito. So if we keep on doing our job and bothering in the good sense our neighbors, actually working with them and helping them, they might come to terms with us and actually tolerate Liberland in the area. And perhaps maybe not 5 years, but 10 years later, the actual recognition will happen.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And we're getting close to the end of the interview now, but I do want to ask you one more fun question. I would say this is definitely my inner visionary coming out here. So if you don't have an answer off the top of your head, no worries. But I kind of want to see where your mind goes with this one. When you sit down at Restaurant de Liberland, the number one 5-star restaurant in Liberland, and you say, I want the most popular dish, what is going to be put in front of you?
Yeah, that's a good question because I'm a bit of foodie myself. So, after years of living in Far East, I'm a great fan of ramen. And I think you can put a lot of different flavors to ramen. So I would probably order that. And what I would say, because I'm a runner, right? So I enjoy eating a meal after a good run. So around Liberland, the circumference of Liberland is about 21 kilometers. I think one day I will probably organize half marathon of Liberland. So I will run that, go to this 5-star restaurant and order the best Liberlandian ramen there is on the menu.
That's a great answer. I think you actually are. You have some visionary in you.
Well, thanks. I hope at least 50% of that will happen.
That'd be really cool. And so now the idea is out there. We'll let the rest take form. Milan, thank you for joining us. It's been great having you. Do you have any way that people listening can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. It's Netherlands@liberland.org. You can contact me there. And maybe just as a closing remark, I would like to ask people to share this podcast and the others. Maybe post it on your social media, invite other people, discuss Liberland, talk about us, and hope to see people in person too in one of our future events.
Absolutely. Thank you for reinforcing that. Definitely please share and subscribe to this podcast after you're done listening. Milan, thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Adam. It was a pleasure talking with you. And enjoy the rest of the day, I believe, for you.
Yes, you're right.
For me. Bye.
Yep. I'm getting my day started over here in San Francisco. I know Milan's getting ready to turn the lights out in The Hague. But yes, thank you for listening, Liberlandians. And we will catch you in the next episode.